Woo! Hello,
Yay!
everyone. Welcome back to another Wednesday session, and welcome to Anna McDougall, who has an amazing story to tell us all about her journey from opera to tech. I bet you haven't heard that one before. Now, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I see you all in the chat. I've got Rhino, I've got Michael R. Oh, that's my husband. I've got Tarek, I've got Illa, I've got Shreyans. So many people. Thank you all for coming. It is lovely to see you all here. Before we get started, I'll just let you know what's going to happen today. So first off, we're going to hear from Anna all about how she, came from opera into tech, and she's now working as a software engineer. And after that, I'm going to ask her your questions, which you can leave in the chat. And then we'll look at the weekly Web Dev Challenge solutions, your awesome animated buttons. And then I'll look at the next challenge, some events, announce the winner, and nag you to join the weekly Web Dev Challenge and tell you about the next stream. So if you're ready, Anna, shall we begin?
Yeah, let's go. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Hello. So you're known as the dev who used to be an opera singer. That's quite a story. Can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, it's not a short story, but I'll try to keep it as snappy as I can. The short version is that I was actually always interested in technology. So when I was a kid, when I was 8, I actually learned HTML. My parents took me to a bookstore, and I was, looking through, Animorphs and these kinds of books. And I decided that instead I would learn HTML at home, because I don't know how my 8-year-old brain was thinking, but apparently that was what I wanted to do. And so I got it and I learned HTML. I studied some software design at high school, but I was the only girl in the class. It was quite alienating. So even though I was good at it, and I won a little high school award for it and everything, I still decided to pursue other things. I had several things I was good at, and there were others where I felt more socially welcome, to be honest. So I pursued them. One of those things was drama, and later on that kind of came back. I worked in some corporate jobs after my bachelor's degree for a while, and ended up actually falling into the world of opera, and I did a Masters of Music at the Sydney Conservatorium.
Wow.
And at that stage, it was a situation where I was a complete imposter, right? That's how I felt. And I'll come back to this later, I think, when we talk more about imposter syndrome. But yeah. I had not done a bachelor's of music. I was completely new to the field, and I ended up becoming an opera singer, doing a 2-year master's degree. And then I moved to Germany to pursue that. Here I had a very successful career, I would say, for an opera singer. I worked 3 years full-time at Hessen State Theatre. I performed on stages all over the world, from Prague to Savannah in the States, and of course Sydney. And it got to a point where I came back to Germany after having 7 years or so in the opera world, and my husband and I decided to try for a child, and I got pregnant. And this meant, at the time, we were living on opposite sides of the country. So he had a full-time job, my job was still contract, so it was quite clear that I would be moving. And this led to a moment where I had to think, okay, I'm about to have a year off. That's part of the German system. I can have a year off maternity leave. Yeah. This is my opportunity to really reflect and think about if opera is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or if I want to make a change. So that's when this kind of thought occurred to me that I loved technology as a kid. This was something I was good at. This is something I enjoyed. And I thought to myself, maybe now is the time to revisit coding. And so that was kind of, I guess, the push, the moment where I decided to try it out, and to see if I could go somewhere with it. The general reason, if you're going to say, why not? Opera sounds like a great job, right? It sounds very glamorous. A lot of people have that impression. Well, I would say the thing about opera is that for me, I felt like I'd done it. I felt like I had achieved it. And I'm a very naturally driven, ambitious person. And with opera, once you're doing the job, that's the job. You don't go anywhere else with it. In addition, I was really looking for an intellectual challenge. So I wasn't feeling like I knew I had this part of my brain that loved logic, that loved problem solving, and I wasn't finding a lot of outlet for that. And the third big thing for me was actually this feeling that I wanted to do some good in the world. And although art and culture does achieve a lot of good in the world, I didn't feel like what I was doing was directly influencing that good in a way that I felt I could have an impact. So those were kind of the three things that I would say led me from one crazy world into another crazy world, so to speak. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Hello to everyone who's joined since I asked the question. And also Evan is saying, what software are you using to put both people and stream it to YouTube? That's StreamYard. But the main point I wanted to say was, he says it's also super cool to hear about major career changes, which we do have a lot of Scrimba students who either want to change career or have changed career. So I think, excellent to hear from you, Anna. So you've decided to change from opera to tech based on your the things you've just told us. How did you then achieve that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I had to leave my job in order to move across the country. And I was on maternity leave. And once that maternity leave ended, I was officially jobless, right? So this meant that I was then on government benefits. And although that isn't a fun thing to have to go through, at the same time, it did afford me some benefits, additional benefits, which is that the government, if they can see that your life circumstances don't allow you to pursue the career that you're trained in, they will help retrain you into a different career with the assumption that it will help you find a job. So the idea is the government invests in you so that you can end up getting a job where you can give back to the government eventually, right?
Amazing.
So the fact that I just had a kid changed what I could do professionally. It is not easy to find a job in opera. It is a very, very highly competitive field. And on top of that, you have to not only there not only has to be a job opening in your city, which is hard enough to find, but in addition to that, it has to be your voice type. And then in addition to that, you have to then be the best person at the audition. So it's extremely hard to find a job in your specific city. Yeah. And so with a tiny, baby, it's not really possible for me to be commuting to Hamburg or something like this. So I had a good argument there. The fact that I had done coding before, that I had worked in digital marketing, these things meant that I had a good argument to make to my caseworker that I should be retrained in tech. So I kind of skipped a step there, but before I got to that point of being retrained, I had to investigate firstly if I was still interested. And for that, I started using resources such as the Odin project to start kind of learning the basics of web development, start teaching myself how to use Git, how to do these kinds of things, and then to see if it really was something I still wanted to do. Because of course, as I said, as a kid, I loved it, but we love lots of stuff as a kid that doesn't necessarily translate. But when I found that was going well and I was getting feedback from other Odin project members that I was going fast and doing good work, I went, okay, I still love this. This still feels really satisfying. This is scratching the itch that I had to solve those problems. I'm going to do this. As I said, I went to my caseworker, made my case, and she said, okay, we will pay for you to do a 1-year course in web development, which that's what I did. so I did that, and along the way used a lot of online resources to learn. I was already a bit ahead of the group because of my previous work with the Odin project. I was kind of a little bit ahead, and that meant I also ended up being both the class representative and the class tutor at the same time. So actually tutoring the other students while I was learning. So it was definitely a really full-on, full-time 9 to 5, Monday to Thursday course. And yeah, here I am.
Can you remember what topics were taught in that course?
Yeah. So it was pretty, I'd say pretty standard, mostly front end. So it was HTML, CSS, SAS, a bit of Bootstrap, React was one of the things we learned, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And a little bit of the back end with Node and Express. So those were that's the main gist of everything that was taught. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's interesting you say that you were also tutoring the other people in the class, because something we always say at Scrimba is that the more you help other people, the better the knowledge goes in. So
absolutely. And that's the thing, some basic things like basic functions I thought I knew. When someone else was asking me, they have a different perspective, of course, right? So they would ask me questions that I'd never thought about with regards to JavaScript. And I'd be like, oh, that's a really good question. I've never thought about it. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And yeah, you definitely learn a lot by teaching. And I found that on YouTube as well. So
yeah, me too. Got Sahan says that he decided exactly a year ago to leave his job and become a developer. And this is such a great resource and tremendously helpful to watch. So yes, thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks, Sahan. That's so good to hear. Yeah.
And you've recently given a talk, Anna, about how being an opera singer helped you in your tech career. I believe I've got the link to the talk here, which I will just pop into the chat. But can you give us, I guess, a brief rundown of how it helped you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And look, I think there are so many skills that that video that you linked to focuses a lot on the technical skills. So the idea of how to learn music, the way in which music theory works. You have to learn lots of different systems. There are, however, a lot of other skills. I have to say, especially now that I'm working as a developer, I'd always said beforehand, people skills are important. Other people call them soft skills. I don't like that. I say people skills. People skills are important. But now that I'm working as a developer, I believe that 5 times as much. Teamwork. I mean, when I was working in the chorus, for example, there was an opera I was in where 70 people were on stage at once, and we were in very tightly choreographed scenes. You cannot let down your teammates in that scenario. You have to know what everyone else is doing at exactly what time with rhythm beats. You're following a conductor, and you have to not only be trustworthy, but be trusting in other people that all those little pieces will eventually fit together. That's a huge one for me. I would say the other thing is I'm obviously not scared of public speaking. That's turned into a big benefit. It's not something I originally thought would be much a part of a developer career, but it's turned out to be really useful, actually, in just being able to, I suppose, know the ways to calm people's nerves, to relax people, to make a joke here and there. They can see that I'm relaxed, and that helps them relax. And I think, whereas if I was much more nervous about public speaking, I feel like that tension also comes across. So I would say that's another huge benefit. But the video does go into more of the technical side of things. I believe it has both the technical skills and the people skills. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight some things that aren't in that video so that we get a nice broad range.
And did it help at all with the interview process? Because I suppose a tech test is a bit like an audition. Not that I've ever done an audition, but in my mind it is. Is that the case?
Yeah, I guess so. There are some auditions that exist where you have to do what's called sight singing. So for those who don't know, sight singing is where you're given a piece of music that you've never seen before, and you have to sing it off the page. I have to admit, I am terrible at sight singing. It is something I was always terrified of. But, I've never thought about it, Leanne. That's a really, really good question, because you're right. It is really similar to a tech test where they give you a problem that you've never seen before, right? And then you are really put on the spot. So I'd never I don't think I'd ever thought of it before. I would say the benefit is that with a tech test nowadays, I've been noticing a trend towards take-home tests and things like that. So you actually have a bit more time to think about it. But certainly, I won't lie, I'm not thrilled about the idea of being put on the spot and quizzed, but I'm probably more generally comfortable with it than a normal person would be, I suppose I would say.
Yeah. Well, Tara is asking, what skills are required to get hired as a web developer? Is it tough to get hired? So what was your experience of that?
Yeah, so this kind of ties into something I really wanted to talk about, which was how I got a job, which is a little unique, let's say. So I stumbled into the job search process. I made a tweet. I love tweeting, by the way. If you're on Twitter, please do follow me. I made a tweet at New Year's where I said, oh, I'm so excited. This is the year I'm going to get hired as a web developer, or I'm going to get my first development job, I said. Wow. And now at this point, my course was due to finish in June. And when I posted this, I was thinking of June. But of course, I got a message from someone straight away saying, actually, we have a front-end role at our company. You should apply. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't have a portfolio. I don't have a CV. Okay, I guess I'll just throw something together. So I threw together my CV and started working on a portfolio site, and had to get this portfolio site up and running within a week and a half, because I sent the CV, and of course, the technical director came back and said, do you have a portfolio site? And I was like, oh,
yeah. Guess I do now.
So I rushed one out, and I didn't end up going for that position, but it kind of made me think, oh, well, I've already got the CV and the portfolio site. I guess I might as well send out a few other applications, none of which really got much traction, to be honest. But the thing is that part of my website was a video introduction. I know that I'm good on video. I'm obviously not scared of video. So I had that, but it was like an introduction from my YouTube channel, and it wasn't really like for employers. It wasn't custom made, so to speak. So I thought, okay, I'll record a video of myself answering the main questions that I know I'm going to get from German employers, because I was looking for a job in Germany. And so I answered questions like, do you speak German? What's your experience? Could you learn our tech stack, even if it's not JavaScript, React, et cetera? So I had all these different options, and I was kind of like, okay, I'll put up this video with all these questions, all these answers. It was about 2 minutes in length. And I uploaded it to my website. And of course, as I said, because I'm on Twitter a lot, I put it onto my Twitter feed as well, saying, hey, everyone, I'm looking for my first developer position. Here's my introduction video. I don't often ask people to retweet what I do. So I said, I know I don't often ask this, but if you could retweet, I would really appreciate it. And that got a much bigger response than I expected. So I got, within 24 hours, I got about 15 job leads from people in my inbox, which was quite amazing. And I also, got a lot of contacts from people just saying, hey, I work for this company. They have a Berlin office. You should try them. I got messages from managing directors, from technical leads, from CTOs saying, hey, why don't you talk to us? Let's have a chat. And one of those people was my current employer, which is Novatech Consulting. And their managing director was one of the people who reached out to me directly via Twitter. So with them, it was a very quick interview process, I think in part because they knew that I had a lot of people knocking on my door at that point. So I kind of inadvertently ended up having people applying to me rather than me applying to them, which is a huge benefit. And actually part of the reason why I always encourage, going back to the question that Tara was asking, that I always encourage people to create content online, be it through blogs, YouTube, anything, like any way that you can get, even Stack Overflow, things like this, just getting yourself out there, showing that you're involved, putting your name out there creates a lot of networking opportunities. If that one person at Novatech hadn't sent my video to the managing director, then I might not have this amazing job that I have right now. So it's just, you just need that one person who already kind of feels that they can relate to you or trust you to send on what you're looking for. And the only way to do that is to show that you're interested and know your stuff. So, yeah.
Wow. What a story. The power
That's the
of
long
Twitter.
version. That's the long version. I'm sorry, Tara. I don't know if that answered your question, but it was a long story.
I think it's really highlighted, though, that thinking outside the box and making that video is what changed the game for you. So sounds
absolutely.
brilliant.
Absolutely. And I often say to people, the applications I sent where I didn't know anyone at the company, like where I was just applying to a LinkedIn job or, something similar, I didn't get a single interview from those. Every interview I got, every in-person interview I got was either from a recruiter contacting me or through someone who knew someone at a company and directly referred me. So, I know that it can seem really daunting when people say it's all about networking, because you go, networking, why? Why can't I just apply? Yeah, but the thing is that generally speaking, and this goes directly to Tara's question, is it tough to get hired? Well, I think it's tougher as a junior. Once you've got 1 to 2 years under your belt, the world is your oyster, right? Yeah. So as a junior or as a new developer, the hardest thing is to make yourself stand out and to create some sort of resume, some sort of content bubble around yourself that shows that you are going to be good at the job, because I would say it's much harder to get past that first level. But once you are past it, the world opens up to you.
And you mentioned creating content. I don't know what stage your YouTube channel was at that point, but do you think it helped you? I mean, aside from the one video you made, did the channel in general help?
I hadn't thought about it before. I think my Twitter helped more than my YouTube, actually. But the two are related. Like, a lot of the people who follow me on Twitter are people who found me on YouTube. A lot of the people who find me on YouTube are people who follow me on Twitter. So there is some relation there. But at the time, I think I only had something like 200 YouTube subscribers. I have about 1,000 now. Yay. And so I think versus at the time, I think I had 7,000 Twitter followers. So certainly there was more of an impact from Twitter than from YouTube. But I do think that the Twitter videos I made gave me those presentation skills on camera, because a camera is different from a stage. A stage I'm very comfortable with, a camera maybe not as comfortable. And that took some time to develop. And certainly having that experience presenting myself on camera via YouTube probably made that video to employers a lot more compelling than it would have otherwise been, I would say.
Yeah. So start making content today, I think, is the takeaway from this. Yeah. Hasaden is asking about basically your experience of finding a job as a software engineer in Germany. I've worked in Germany, but my interview process was in Britain. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear, what was it like finding a job in Germany? Maybe people from Germany are in the chat, and that would be extra useful for them.
Well, yeah, and I actually created a YouTube video on this very topic about Germany. I think it was the questions that people asked me on Twitter, and I answered them on YouTube. It was something like 16, I think, in the end. It's like my most watched video. So obviously there are people who want to know about this. And certainly I do think there are some differences. I have to say I have never looked for a job in the USA, so I can't really comment as to exactly how that works. I will say generally German employers, and by employers I mean maybe top level people who don't have as much technical experience, but also recruiters in general tend to be more obsessed with pieces of paper, certificates, degrees, all this kind of stuff. In fact, that was one of the big reasons I decided to do a course rather than just teaching myself. I knew after 2 months of teaching myself that I could do the job without a course, right? I could have done that. But I knew having that one little piece of paper that says certificate in web development would open up so many doors that otherwise would be incredibly difficult for me to get through. I mean, in the end, that's unfortunately the reality in Germany. I often say if you have a certificate or a degree, that's one huge benefit in Germany. If you speak German, that's another huge benefit in Germany. It is possible to find a job without both of those things, so with no certificate and without German, but it will take longer, and it will take more persistence, and it will take more networking. It is much harder. If you speak German and don't have a certificate, you'll still have a good chance. Again, it might take a bit longer, but you can probably do it. If you have a certificate and don't speak German, same story. If you have both, you've got a much better shot. That's
the best bet.
Both is ideal, but that's
we do what we can. Absolutely.
I would say, generally, just to go back to the difference, I would say the general mindset is also about career changes. In Germany, you have to really convince someone why you've changed careers. I think in Australia, at least, career changing is quite normal. It's not expected that you're set in your ways. In Germany, it's much more common for people to decide at 15 or 16 or even younger what they're going to do. And then it's kind of expected that you do that for the rest of your life. And to do something different is considered like, oh, why do you do that? Are you unreliable? Do you not know what you want? Like, there's a bit of suspicion around it. It is changing, I have to say. The younger generation does tend to be a lot more open to these things, but that attitude still exists. And so, especially as, someone in her early 30s, changing careers from something like opera, I did feel like I would have to convince people as to why this was happening. This was very shocking to people that this would even be possible, let alone wanted. So,
No, that is very interesting, because in the UK, career changing is very accepted. In fact, I think it's probably more unusual to choose a career and stick with it. Maybe that's a generalization, but it's really not an issue. And so I guess we're lucky in that way. But nice to hear that it's changing. And Olawale asks, how are you able to deal with imposter syndrome while learning and also not get overwhelmed?
Yeah, so I often say this is one of my superpowers, which is that I dealt with so much imposter syndrome while being an opera singer that I'm totally hardened against it now. So I feel very lucky. I have not experienced imposter syndrome yet in tech, but again, I was an opera singer for 7 years and I dealt with it that entire time. So I've learned a lot about it, and I feel like I'm in a very unique position to bring that learning over. This is, I guess, another thing that I've gotten from opera that I can bring across into tech, is to explain the way in which I dealt with it. And that is this idea of changing from the mindset of having to prove yourself and having to get there, like this real, like, oh my God, I have to show them that I'm good. I have to prove that I can do this. I need to create this thing in this amount of time, or else, like, what am I? Am I ignorant? All these kinds of ideas start popping into your head when you don't meet this criteria that you set for yourself, right? So this idea of a proving yourself mindset is, I think, the core of where imposter syndrome comes from. Because if you instead take the approach that every gap in your knowledge is a learning opportunity, then suddenly this idea of being an imposter goes out the window, because absolutely everyone in tech has more to learn. No one in tech knows everything. No one.
Very true.
So we all have gaps in our knowledge. The question is, you've got to be able to find those gaps, right, in order to fill them. The only way you can become better as a developer is to find those gaps. This is a good thing, right? But you never know where those gaps are unless you try something that you're not comfortable with, or unless you put yourself in a room where you are the most junior person in the room, where everyone does know more than you. This is an opportunity for you. This is a learning opportunity for you. It's good that you are the worst in the room. That means you have the most to learn, and you have the people around you who can help you to learn it. So it's about this switch from proving yourself to, this is a learning opportunity. And I think once you do it that way, for me, imposter syndrome just doesn't happen anymore.
That's a really great mindset to have. I think a lot of people in life, but especially in tech, get into the feeling that they have to prove themselves. So yeah, turning it around and thinking about it as a learning perspective is a great tip. Yeah. I do have a question from Debjit. It's really hard to network. Do you have any tips, basically?
Yeah, I do. I have a few tips. I have a few blog posts actually on some of the things relating to this. The big one is to take more of an interest in other people. I think when people think about networking, they're often thinking about themselves. They're like, how do I put myself in front of people? How do I show them how good I am? How do I, highlight all this stuff about myself that is awesome? Like, just chill, chill first. And then secondly, start taking more of an interest in the other people. People like to feel that they are interesting, and most people are interesting. So if you ask the right questions, you can discover some really interesting, cool things about the people around you. And once you start pulling those things out, you start going, oh, wow, like this person is so much more than what they seem to be. And when you start getting to that point with someone, they'll probably start asking the same thing of you. They'll start being interested in who you are and what you have to offer and what your story is, right? So it sounds counterintuitive, but the best way to put yourself out there is to minimize your ego and become more interested in the world around you. And then that goes into things like skills that can be developed this way. I'm a strong believer social skills can be built and trained just the same way that technical skills can. So I mentioned my blog before, and there's a post I have up there which is about, it's just blog.annamcdougall.com, by the way, but it has how to give good compliments. This is a skill. It's a skill. My husband has this skill. I learned it from him. I was not good before. So I know that it can be trained because I did it. And these are ways in which you can show people your appreciation for them. And it all goes to this core of being genuine, of course. I'm not saying go out there and just start sucking up to people, right? But to give people genuine compliments about things they care about is a very touching thing for people, and something that does not happen as often as I think should in this world, frankly, because I think we all need a little more love, and we all need to be really open about what we love about each other. Let's not wait until people are gone, until we get to their eulogy and then say all these nice things about them. Let's say it to them while they're here so that they know how loved they are and they know how special they are. So yeah, it's kind of got a bit into philosophy there, but I think you get the right idea.
It's true though. Yeah, and I've just shared the link to your blog so people can go and check out the articles that you've mentioned. Lovely. So the chat is popping off. So keep asking questions. If you have a question, it probably make it slightly clearer if you write caps lock question : and then your question, and then I'll be able to pick them out, hopefully. But yeah, keep them coming. Yeah, so you actually mentioned when I first messaged you, Anna, that you were a Scrimba user, which is amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
How did you find Scrimba, and what kind of things have you done with it so far?
I have no idea how I found it. I have no idea how. It was probably Google. Google. I think at the time I was in my course and everyone else was learning beginner JavaScript, and I was already way past that point and was hoping to learn React. I knew React was coming later in our course, and so we had a week's holiday. We'd been doing all this beginner JavaScript stuff. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll get a head start and I'll start learning React now so that when we get to it later, I'm also, again, a little bit ahead and I have a little bit of an advantage and can focus more on learning, the minutia, so to speak. So I found Bob Zirrell's course, the free React.js course, and I loved it. I did the whole thing, and I have to say, I am not the kind of person who completes courses. I'm the kind of person who starts courses and then finishes them after a third of the way or half the way through. And his course I finished. I thought it was excellent. Highly, highly, highly recommend it to everyone. And I think he responded to a tweet of mine once, and I felt like I was talking to a celebrity. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's actually in the chat. at the moment, or he was earlier. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's still here, but he was definitely here earlier. So,
Awesome.
hello, Bob.
Well, if
Your
he's
course
out
is
there,
excellent.
good job, Bob.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, actually, a lot of people find Scrimba via Bob's course. Here he is. Here we go.
Yay!
Hello. Yeah, amazing. So great to hear that you're a Scrimba user and loving Bob's course.
Yeah, I have to say the things, if I may give, I know you'll hate this, but I want to give Scrimba a bit of a shout out for being one of the few platforms where you can really interact with the code as it's taught to you. That's the huge thing for me. Like, that's the selling point of Scrimba. Like, I'm actually not usually someone who likes video courses, for example. I tend to be a reader. So I was really skeptical going into the course that I would like it. But the fact that you could interact with the code, try things out, see how Bob did it in this case, and really play with it, it's a huge advantage. And I have to say, one of the big selling points for me personally. So
fantastic. Yeah. Bob is happy it was helpful, and he's hoping to update the React course soon. So yeah, there'll be more stuff. And Tom also found Scrimba through Bob's React course. So yeah, great stuff.
Yep. There you go, Bob.
Yeah, you're reeling them in. Question from Jan: how long did it take to switch from singing to a developer? So you mentioned you had that sort of year off. Is it fair to say it took a year, or was it?
It did take a year. It was under a year. It was almost exactly a year, actually. It wasn't exactly aligned with my maternity leave. I took that time to look after my kid. But I started with the Odin project, I think it was March the 4th last year. And I started my first day at Novatech as a junior software engineer on the 1st of March this year.
Wow.
So I just got into the 1 year mark. So yeah, as I said, I didn't actually end up finishing my course because I managed to get a job already. So didn't need it anymore.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you touched earlier on German employers looking for certificates. Do you think they would accept certificates from Udemy, Udacity, Scrimba maybe? Or is it very much sort of in-person / not online, basically, courses?
See, a year ago, I would have said no, definitively. I would have said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what online course you do, no one will take you seriously. Because that was the attitude that I think existed, at least in Germany. I can't talk to other countries, but at least in Germany, that was the attitude that existed a year ago when I was doing research and talking to people. I think that is changing. And the huge part of that is, of course, Corona. You know, the fact that people are now working from home, studying from home. Eventually, you have to ask the question, is doing a degree from home, which a lot of students were doing, all that much different from doing a course online at home, right? Is there really that big of a difference, right? Maybe there is some difference in terms of things like tasks, assignments, exams, things like that. Okay, fair enough. That adds some extra level to it. I do think, love it or hate it, that a university degree will always hold more weight than a certificate in this industry. I don't think it has any bearing on whether you're a good developer or not, but that's the world I think we live in. I do think that online learning is taken a lot more seriously now than it would have been a year ago. So I'm not sure that answers the question in its entirety, but I would say it definitely holds more weight now than it did, in 2019, for example.
That's very interesting. I've got another question here. Switch is difficult. Even in the same industry, people are uncomfortable switching from one job to another. How did you change the context that you were in for 7 years? So yeah, that's a really good point. I suppose it must have been culturally I imagine culturally very different. Maybe not. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel I'm lucky in a regard because I did have that interest in tech quite early. So I already did have that exposure to tech. I also had worked some desk jobs after my bachelor's degree. So I worked, I think 3.5 years in corporate jobs. So I knew what I was going into, right? I think it would have been a lot harder to switch into desk work if I hadn't already had some experience in that. Also, and I don't know if this is obvious to our male viewers or not, but tech is a very male-heavy industry, generally speaking. And I also have the advantage that I have a lot of side interests and hobbies over the years, not necessarily right now, where I've been in those kinds of environments that are male-heavy, that are male-dominated, I should say. So I wasn't completely out of my comfort zone, and I felt like I was already equipped to handle the social change of going from a dressing room with 6 women in it and makeup and heels and costumes and, hairdressers coming in to do our wigs, and then going into a scenario where I'm on a Zoom call with, 5 guys. So in that sense, I did have a little bit of prep. But yeah, so I'm not sure. I kind of just did it. I consider myself a very resilient person, and I guess I just decide to do the thing, and then I just do it. So I don't know.
Yeah. And this is a good one from Alan. We talk a lot on Scrimba about projects and how important they are. I was asking, what are some projects that you worked on during your learning days that really helped you?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I did the ones that everyone does, right? I did the tic-tac-toe, I did the to-do project or the to-do list items. I did the calculator, of course, can't forget the calculator. I did all the classic ones. For me, actually, I would say making my own portfolio site was more satisfying, and I felt like I learned more through that than from the other projects I did. And I think the reason is that I was more emotionally invested in it, right? I really cared what the outcome was, and I wanted it to be perfect. I didn't want there to be any problems with it. So I really went out of my way to research a lot more. I wanted to make sure that everything I did was efficient and fast and beautiful, and I really tried to achieve that. Non-portfolio project, I'm trying to think. There was a fun one that I did as part of the Odin project, which was to learn a way of learning grid, which is to create like a little Etch-a-Sketch. So you make like a grid where when you hover the mouse over the boxes in the grid, then it changes colors, and you can make it a random color each box it hovers over. That was a really fun one. And then you have the ability to have the user enter a new grid size. Right, so then you dynamically create a different grid size with that. That was really fun. For myself, I made a little mini game with a terrible UI, but I made a little game which was like you hear 2 different musical tones, and then you have to choose which one is higher, right? The first one or the second one. And then the further you go, it's between the first and the last. And then as you get past levels, it starts adding notes. So 3 notes, and you have to be comparing the first and the last. 4 notes, and you're still comparing the first and the last. So you have to kind of hold the note in your head. That was a really fun little game, and something that kind of combined my previous career with my new one. So that's always fun. Basically, the personal buy-in is what makes projects more fun and interesting for me, I would say.
Yeah, I think that for me, I usually make things to do with animals. So I've got, cat pages, cat sitting pages, rabbit pages. That's like my whole portfolio.
I used to always use, when I was learning APIs, I used to always use the Cat Facts API as my learning resource.
Yeah, love
that's
that
a classic.
Yeah. But just tailor it to your own interest. And then, as you say, Anna, you'll be so much more interested in it. And it's therefore, it's just so much more fun, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely. And PPSLP is in agreement with you about Bob's free React course. It's the only tutorial on React you could understand at the time. So well done, Bob. Yeah.
Yay.
Talking about learning, is there anything you wish you knew sooner when you were learning to code?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I would say the importance of things like formatting. I know this sounds really trivial, but I would say for me, I used to just code whatever, and I just kind of tabs, spaces, whatever. I wasn't thinking about it. It was really messy. And then I think it was only after about 6 months of coding that I discovered Prettier existed. And suddenly it was like, so I wish I'd done that a little bit earlier. From a readability perspective. But on the topic of readability, I think there are some things like some clean code principles, for example, good variable naming. It sounds trivial when you're just starting. You're like, who cares if I name this X or is user? Like, who cares? But the fact is that when you're working in a real dev job, you can't just name a variable X or Y or anything like that, right? It's not going to fly. You're going to be talked to. Everything has to be as clear as possible and as close to natural language as you can make it. So I think that's a good habit to get into from a really early stage. So for example, booleans, so things that have a true or false value should sound like things that would have a yes or no answer. So like I said, is user, are active, things like this that sound like they're going to be yes, he is active, or no, she is not active. These kinds of things should be named that way. Yeah, just keep things descriptive, and even if that means the variable name ends up reasonably long, I still think it's a really good habit to get into. And when you do get to a coding test for a job interview, that is something that they will be looking for. If you are naming things variable A and variable B, you might not get a call back.
Yeah, it's a good thing to get into the habit of doing early on. So you don't even have to think about it, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, lovely. And what advice do you have for beginner tech bloggers, or perhaps beginner tech YouTubers, or anyone who wants to create content, basically?
Yeah, it's funny because the most common advice that you will get on this topic is to be consistent, right? To make a schedule and stick to it. I am the worst at doing that. So if you are the kind of person who can be consistent and who does feel like you have a set period of time each week that you can dedicate to creating a video or to writing a blog post, then absolutely that is an awesome way to go about things, much like this stream, right? Having it at a set time each week, it helps increase audience. It helps people know when they can expect something from you. It is awesome, awesome, awesome. However, if you're like me and you have a child or you have a tight schedule or you're kind of a bit of a scatterbrain, then I recommend focusing on things that you love, kind of like we were saying about projects. Choose topics that interest you. As a beginner, the most common problem I see, the most common pitfall that I see from beginner content creators is the belief that they have nothing to offer. It is absolute beep, beep, right? It is absolute beep, because it is just not true. If you think about all the things you Googled in your first 30 days of learning to code, just think for a second how much you were Googling, right? And you didn't always find an answer to what you were looking for, did you? So that means there's someone else out there Googling the same things and also not finding an answer. So I always say, if you get stuck, think about what confused you a few weeks ago, right? Because you were confused about it. You are 100% not the only person confused by this thing, I can guarantee you. So now it's a few weeks ago. You've probably kind of come to terms with it. You've solved it in your head. You've worked out a way of learning it for yourself. It's the perfect time to write a blog post or create a YouTube video to say this, what is the difference between var and let? Well, now I know, and now I can explain it to you, and then you go through the steps of how you remember it. People have lots of different ways of remembering things. Even if a topic has been covered to death, you are unique. You have a different way of thinking, and it could be that little trick you taught yourself, that little way that you remember it personally, that could be the switch for someone else. That could be the thing that triggers them to understand this topic. Right? So never, ever underestimate what you have to offer. That would be my huge takeaway to everyone out there. One of my first blog posts was the difference between class and ID in HTML, right? I mean, most people who work with HTML would be like, well, that's clear, right? But when you're starting, you're like, I don't get it. I can use both in CSS as a selector. They both work with my JavaScript. why wouldn't I just use, class for everything? Or why wouldn't I use ID for everything? Who cares, right? And so once I had solved this in my head, I thought, this is something I can talk about. I had the benefit, of course, of being in a course where I was working with beginners and they were asking me lots of these questions. So I knew what questions were coming up. But really, go back to questions you had. It's never too late to talk about how you worked it out.
Yeah, and your way of explaining it might just help someone else, might be the only thing they can understand.
That's it.
That's a great tip. And even actually, if you haven't found a solution to it yet, I've written a couple of blog posts in my time where stuff didn't work and I had no idea why. But at the time, I was just blogging every week because that was the schedule. So this was my progress this week. Oh, actually, there wasn't any because blah, blah, blah. And then a bit later, I was able to write. Yeah. When you do find the answer, you can update it. Or maybe someone else in the comments will help you out. So
yeah, that's so true. And I mean, the other thing is, if you don't feel up to writing about a technical issue that week, talk about your progress with coding. Use it a bit like a journal. Like some of my earliest posts were also like, why am I here? Like I was just working in opera. Why am I starting to learn to code? Like, what's that all about? These were questions that I had been asking myself and had to come to terms with myself. And so I put it out on paper. As I said, I've got blog articles on imposter syndrome, on how to give good compliments, on how to make workplaces more friendly for women. I've got lots of blog posts that have nothing to do with the actual act of sitting down and coding. But some of those blog posts have been the most popular. The moment I start writing about Docker, I really don't get very many responses because there is actually more of an audience out there for people skills in tech and for beginner topics in tech. So it's a great way to get started. And it goes back to this thing I was saying about job searches. It acts as proof to a potential employer that you are interested and that you know how to explain things to others and that you are able to take technical concepts and wrap them in everyday language. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is the job of a senior engineer, right? That's what they do. They lead projects and they explain to juniors how things work, why we can't do things a certain way, and they have to use more simple language than the highly technical stuff. So if you can show that you already have this skill to explain things to other people and to make things clear and approachable and that you understand them at the same time, I mean, that's value for a company. That's your sales pitch. So it's worth doing.
Totally. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Get the money.
It doesn't always have to be a technical article. In fact, by the sounds of what you're saying, the sort of people skills based ones are the ones that really get a lot of attention. So fantastic point. And on this, on the job hunt, really, how do you know, asks Debjit, when you're ready to apply? It's kind of confusing. I mean, you told your story of how really you weren't intending on applying, but it kind of happened anyway. But was there a point where you felt like, I'm ready now?
Well, I mean, as you said, I kind of fell into the job search. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer this question, but I would say that my answer to a lot of these questions is to ask other people. And I think that one of the most under-tapped resources in tech are recruiters. Now, most people only know recruiters from them sending random anonymous spam messages to their inbox and they think, recruiters, no, thank you. But I will say this. If you can find a recruiter who you get along with and who is open to talking to you, and most of them are, because they like building connections, that's part of their job, then you can go to them and you can say, hi, I know you've worked with this company for this job, or I see that you're advertising for this position. I know I'm not ready for that position yet, but I want to have a quick chat to you about whether I could be suitable for something in future. Do you have 5 minutes for a video call? Do you have 10 minutes for a video call? Almost all of them will say yes. And then you go into a call with them and you just tell them about yourself. And then you say, this is where I'm at. This is what I can do. you know the market. What do you think? Is this something that is, am I at the level yet that you think I could realistically sell myself to the companies who are looking for developers? This is exactly what I did back before I decided to get my certification. I saw that a company who had been hiring junior developers was working with a certain recruitment company. I actually sent a LinkedIn message to a female recruiter from that company, and I said, "Hi, I saw that you are recruiting for this company. Can I talk to you?" And she was just like, "Yeah, sure, let's have a chat," because that's what a lot of recruiters do. They talk to people all day. They know how to have these conversations. And I said, "This is what I'm doing. I'm, 2 months into learning this. I'm really good. I'm being mentored. I feel like I've found my calling. When would you think that I should apply for a job at this company that you're representing?" And she said, she told me about the certification thing, how, I'd have to really prove my value if I didn't have a certificate. This is the German system that I'm talking about. And we had this conversation, and that was a huge part of the reason why I decided to get a certificate in the first place, because I spoke to her about it. And like I said, it's kind of like you have nothing to lose by talking to them, because if they say, "No, you're not ready yet," then you've gotten good, honest feedback that you can work with. If they say, "Yes, you're ready. Actually, I know I've been working with this company. Maybe I should send your details to them." You can get that kind of response as well. So you have everything to gain and nothing to lose, because if they say, "No, you're not ready yet," well, fine, you haven't applied for anything, you haven't lost out. Whereas if the common wisdom would say, "Oh, just send stuff out and see what the response is." Well, if you're like me and you live in an area where there aren't that many companies hiring for tech, then you might burn your bridges too early, right? You might send out applications too early, and then they say, "No, not interested," and then they might not look at your resume again, even if it's 6 months, a year later. It's unfortunate, but it happens, right? So I would say ask other people, talk to other developers. One of my best contacts on Twitter early on was someone called Simon Weller, and he was a developer that I found who also lives in Leipzig like me. And I just sent him a message on LinkedIn again being like, "Hey, I'm just getting started in this space. Can we have a chat?" And we just had a text chat where I told him about myself and my background. He told me about his experiences in the industry, and I was able to get really great feedback about what the tech industry was like, how I could go about presenting myself in that industry. And we became friends in the end, so I would say ask. Again, it's about reaching out to people, asking them about themselves, about what they're up to, what they think. And most people are willing to help and want to help. So it's nice when you can form those connections. And of course, you might even find a friend on the way. So who doesn't like that?
Amazing. Yeah. That's a brilliant tip about recruiters, because we have had recruiters on the stream before, but I've never really thought of the idea of basically asking them whether you're ready, and if not, what skills are you missing. That's a fantastic tip. Yeah. I'm conscious that I've only booked you for an hour and we have 2 minutes remaining, but I have two more questions, I think. ADDR says, "What certificate in Germany did you get?"
Yeah, so for anyone who is in Germany, I got the DCI, that's Digital Careers Institute, Web Development Certification. So that's considered a Weiterbildung under German law, and that means that you get a proper stamped, because the Germans love stamps. Anyone who lives in Germany knows they love the stamp. It's a stamped certificate, and that's a 1-year course. If you are on Arbeitslosengeld 2, then you can qualify, or I think 1 as well, then you can qualify to get what's called a Bildungsgutschein. So if you are registered with the government as Arbeitslos, then you go to your caseworker and you say, "I want a Bildungsgutschein," and then they will ask you about why you want that. And if you can get that, then you can do a course at DCI. That's basically how it works.
Love a good Gutschein. Yeah. What's the English word? Voucher or?
Voucher, yeah, very good.
Yes. And the final question I want to ask you, I've got lots of song requests, by the way, but I won't put you on the spot. Is from Sarhan. Can you specify a specific skill, like your clean code, etc., that made you stand out to get your current new job? Are you aware of one which really, sealed the deal?
Yes. It was the fact that I could present myself and sell to them that I was a fast learner. I heard that from my unit lead when I asked him. I was like, so what was it? Like, what was it that sold you? And he said, well, we know that you don't know our tech stack. So my tech stack now is Java, Kotlin, Spring Boot, Angular, literally nothing that I studied, right?
Oh, wow.
But my sales pitch to them was basically, I know that I can learn this. I'm confident I can learn this. I'm a fast learner. This comes naturally to me. I'm in my element when I'm learning tech, right? That was my pitch to them. So I would say the ability to learn quickly, but actually that in itself is just who I am. The thing that is wrapped around that ability to learn quickly is the fact that I could sell my ability to learn quickly. And I think this comes from my skills on the stage and doing presentation. And it comes from the fact that I worked in marketing. I have another video on this, which is how to answer the question, tell us about yourself. This is the common first interview question. So, Anna, tell us about yourself, right? And it is my belief that if you can craft this beautiful 1 to 2 minute summary of who you are with the biggest selling points in there and do what is in sales called an elevator pitch. You do your elevator pitch for yourself. You have to know it back to front, and you need to say it with conviction and with energy. And if you can do that, you convince them in the first 2 minutes, the rest just comes. So that's what I would say is the skill. If you're looking to get a job and you feel confident in your ability to get an interview, then I would say the next step is make that sales pitch, sell them on your abilities.
Lovely. Yeah, what a fantastic answer. And I happen to know that the YouTube video I posted earlier, where Anna talks about how opera helped her in tech, does contain little clips of her singing. So do go and check that out on her YouTube channel. Yes,
I'll repost one to my Twitter as well, because I think I've avoided putting like sound clips in there, but I do have a nice one from the old days from me singing in Prague. So I'll post that to my Twitter. So if you follow me at, hang on, there we go,
yep.
Anna McDougall, then I'll post that up tonight so you can see.
Lovely. Look forward to that. Well, thank you very much for coming. It's been wonderful to talk to you and hear your brilliant story and all your amazing tips. So yeah, thanks very much.
And thank you, Leanne, and thank you, Scrimba, and to all of the viewers here who have welcomed me with open arms. I really appreciate it. I have a little human yelling for me now, so I can
we'll let you go.
Give her some cuddles. But thank you, everyone, and I look forward to hearing from more of you later.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Anna. Bye for now.
Bye.
Awesome. What an amazing story that was from Anna. Yeah, lovely. And thank you for your wonderful questions as well. So now we are at the weekly Web Dev Challenge solutions time. Yeah, so I think that calls for let's rustle my papers and get into it. So the task, as you know, was making, what were they? Neon animated buttons, which were great fun. And the first one we have is from David. He has created, the task was 3. He's created 6. Look at this. So the 3 that were in the original challenge, and then some more. How cool is that? I think I like the fade in one the best. Very nice, David. Yes, and the next one is from Bjarki. I like this one because of this really cool sort of rounded effect. So in the one I made, this filled color was just straight, but Bjarki's done it rounded, which is funky. I think the buttons look really cool as well. So very nice, Bjarki. And then we have one from, that's the right one, Dave, who has made this super slick recreation of the buttons from the challenge, but I really like this refresh one. I think he's done that. I didn't do a particularly good job of this one actually on Friday. It didn't look as slick as that. So well done, Dave. Yeah. And then we have, oh yeah, this is quite something. from Ambry, this amazing creation. She's turned it into a Scrimba fan page, and each button does something different. And I love these moving letters. And if you click here, I mean, I have no clue how this works. I've looked at the code and I still have no clue how this works. Maybe Michael knows. But it creates this awesome kind of firework effect. Very amazing. Well done, Ambry. And then we have one. Yeah, Michael says, this is really good. Yeah, totally. Then we have one from Oshka with the 3 required buttons and an extra rainbow one. Look at it go. How cool is that? Super nice. Yeah. PPSLP says snaking letters. Nice. Yeah, that's about this one. Very cool. Yeah, so this rainbow button made my Wednesday, I would say. And then we have, wow, look at this one. Illa has created, I don't know how many, 4, 8, 12 buttons. The most buttons, actually, I think, in an homage to Steve Jobs. And his quote on buttons, which was, "We made the buttons on the screen look so good, you'll want to lick them." Well, I'm sure we'll want to lick these. Look at them. I'm going to look at every single one, actually, because I think that is some amazing effort has gone into this. Ooh, I like that neon one. Yeah, I think that one might be my favorite. Or maybe that one, that super bright one. Lovely. Appreciate the effort there. And who's next? Oh, Andy. Michael, this is what I was laughing at earlier, actually. This has just reminded me. So he's created these cool buttons. Wow, I really like the arrow on the back one. That's super cool. But then when you press this, it says you shouldn't do it. So obviously I will. Cats come down. And I believe, I'm not sure actually, that kind of looks like the cat from Icon Monster, which is a site I use to get my SVGs from. But yes, super cool. Andy did say there's another secret button. I don't know if he meant that one or another one. But in any case, super cool. Amazing. Ha Chop Toot says, yes, absolutely. And Michael says, everyone needs neon in their lives. Yes. Says the most neon person ever, aren't you, Michael? So this is Andy and his amazing cats. He's actually called Andy Catlow. So I think, is that why? Awesome. Yes, who's next? Alan. Alan actually has combined this week's challenge with last week's challenge because it's got this little llama, and when you play it, it spins around like a record. How cool is that? And actually, the play button becomes a pause button. Wow, that's going above and beyond. Awesome. And we've got a couple more extra effects. Super cool. Well done, Alan. And the final one is Maria, who has created the buttons from the challenge, but they have different effects. So been very creative here. I really like this spinning one. How cool is that? Woo! Look at it go. Lovely. So, yes, DJ Llama is indeed in the house, PPSLP. And Danny Thompson's here. Hello, Danny. Nice to see you. Fantastic video and projects. Thank you. Danny will be coming on the stream soon. Can't remember the exact date, but soon. And I'm looking forward to welcoming him back for a CV review. Yeah. Marley says she loves, that's not Marley, this is Marley. She loves all of these. Yes. And Jose says, good job, everyone. Very nice solutions. Totally. I think it's time to open the winner poll. So most of them are kind of obvious who they are, but the ones where it's effects based, I've kind of given a little explanation of which one it is to jog your memory. So yeah, come along and cast your votes. Looking forward to seeing who's going to win. And in the meantime, I shall reveal the next challenge. Ooh, yeah. So this is an idea which came out of the Friday stream. I said, what challenge should we do next? And someone said, a soundboard. Great idea. So it's all already built, but if you want to change it or anything, of course you can. And your job is to wire up these buttons so that they make these sounds when you click them using JS, or maybe you want to use something else, up to you. And as a stretch goal, you can add some more buttons and maybe stop the sound when another one starts. So this siren goes on for a while. So maybe you can stop it if you then press the alien. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Andy Catlow says, I'm a few minutes behind. There is a secret button on mine that I need to find. Oh, really? Interesting. Should I get the old DevTools out? Is that cheating? If you have an idea of where the button is, oh, look, there it is. Wow. Look at that. Wow, consider that before you cast your vote. That is amazing. Super cool. Yes. So that's the next challenge. Oh, need to link to it. Marley says, oh, this will be fun. Hope so. Yeah, give it a go. There it is. Looking forward to seeing your solutions next week. Events news. What's coming up next? Tomorrow is the weekly community meetup. And then on Friday, Michael and I will be live coding this in our live stream. Yes, and next week we have Jermaine Jupiter coming back to review your CVs. Awesome. If you want your CV reviewed, in the challenge, there is a link to a form where you can add your CV and we'll show it to Jermaine. Lovely. Yes, so time to announce the winners. What I will do is give you 60-second timer, another minute to cast your votes, and then we will announce the winner. Oh, and I won't forget this week for once, the random winner selected to get 6 months free of Scrimba Pro is Irina. Well done, Irina. So contact me to get your prize. I'll give it to you ASAP. Oh, now I have to find the buttons to leave the firework. Is there actually one? Well, now I'm intrigued. Just makes you wonder how many hidden buttons are out there that I don't realize. So, nope. Cat container. Wow, why are there so many cats? Are they all different? Oh, wow, this is like whole new. Okay, here are cats. Maybe they are different. I'm intrigued by this. Okay, fireworks are here. Oh, wow. A decoy container. Wow. I'm just a decoy. Ooh. And back to cats. Wow. That's amazing. Thank you, Andy, for making my Wednesday. How's the old timer doing? Oh, it hasn't started. Yeah. While we're waiting for that, I should encourage you to join the weekly Web Dev Challenge. Yeah, come along and get the latest challenge sent directly to your inbox every Wednesday. That would be absolutely lovely to have you on board. Yeah, decoy. That's amazing. I've never seen a decoy button. There's a first time for everything. Oh, and the next stream, I've already told you that, is with Jermaine. Oh, look, and I actually linked to the form here. Thank you, Parsley Ann. So you can fill this out if you would like your CV reviewed by Jermaine next week, live on the show. Looking forward to that. So Oh, 7 seconds to go. I'm hovering, ready to announce. Oh, I thought it was going to beep for you, but it just beeped in my earpiece. So, loading the results. Oh, wow. Check it out. The winner is Alan with his lovely llama records, which is this one. Great job, Alan. Congratulations. Woo! Oh, I forgot to do. And the llama is spinning with joy, as am I. Yeah, brilliant. Alan, contact me to grab your prizes. Congratulations. And last week, I forgot to discuss. Now I've lost it. How annoying. Oh no, I know what it is. These polls. Choose a bird. A hummingbird one with 8 responses. Oh, lovely. I chose the hummingbird. And choose a shoe. Doc Martens one. Woo, yeah. I love Doc Martens. Brilliant choices. You all have such wonderful taste. Alan says, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your awesome submission. So I guess that's it for this week. It was lovely to have you all. Nice to talk to you all. And thank you for coming and listening to Anna's amazing story. It was a lot of fun. And hopefully I'll see you on Friday to code up that soundboard with alien noises. What more could you want from a Friday night? Okay, speak to you later, everyone. Have a good week.